Her name is Emily, 27 years old, with chestnut hair tied loosely in a braid and eyes that carry a quiet storm. She's been walking for hours, her hiking boots crunching against the uneven trail. Her backpack, heavy with supplies, presses into her shoulders, but she doesn't mind the weight. It's grounding, real, unlike the life she left behind in the city, the skyscrapers, the endless meetings, the suffocating expectations of a world she never chose. Out here in the heart of the Pacific Northwest, she feels something she hasn't felt in years. Possibility. Emily pauses to sip from her water bottle, wiping sweat from her brow. The trail is rugged, unmarked in places, but she's done her research. Months of planning, poring over maps, studying survival blogs, watching videos about edible plants and water purification. She's not reckless, but she's driven. This trek is her escape, her rebellion against a life that feels like a cage. She adjusts her pack and presses on, her breath steady, her heart pounding with a mix of exhaustion and exhilaration. The forest is alive around her. A squirrel darts across a branch, its tiny claws scratching bark. A hawk circles overhead, its shadow fleeting across the ground. Emily smiles faintly, letting the sounds wash over her. For the first time in a long time, she feels like she's exactly where she's supposed to be. But the wilderness is indifferent. It doesn't care about her courage or her dreams. It doesn't warn her about the danger coiled just off the path. She doesn't see the snake until it's too late. It's a rattlesnake, camouflaged against the dry leaves, its diamond-patterned scales blending seamlessly with the forest floor. Emily steps too close, her boot brushing against a twig, and the snake strikes. A flash of movement, a sharp hiss, and then pain, searing, electric pain in her ankle. She stumbles backward, gasping, her heart lurching into her throat. The snake slithers away, disappearing into the underbrush, but the damage is done. Emily drops to her knees, clutching her leg. Her vision blurs as panic sets in. She knows what this is. She's read about it, watched videos, prepared for it. Or so she thought. A rattlesnake bite, venom coursing through her veins. Her hands tremble as she fumbles for her backpack, searching for the first aid kit. She needs to stay calm, needs to think. But the pain is overwhelming, like fire spreading up her leg, and her thoughts are scattering like leaves in a storm. She manages to pull out a bandage, wrapping it tightly above the bite, but it's clumsy, desperate. Her phone is useless out here, no signal, no help. She tries to stand, to keep moving, but her legs buckle. The world tilts, and she collapses against a tree, her breath coming in shallow gasps. The forest, once so welcoming, now feels vast and uncaring. She's alone. Completely, utterly alone. Minutes pass, or maybe hours. She can't tell. The venom is working fast. Her ankle swells, the skin turning an angry red. Her pulse races, and a cold sweat beads on her forehead. She closes her eyes, trying to focus, trying to fight the fear clawing at her chest. She thinks of her life back home, the penthouse apartment, the corporate meetings, the fiancé she barely knows. None of it matters now. All she wants is to survive. And then, through the haze of pain, she hears it. Footsteps, slow, deliberate, crunching against the forest floor. Her eyes flutter open, and she sees him, a man, tall and broad-shouldered, emerging from the trees like a figure from a dream. His face is weathered, framed by a short beard, and his eyes are sharp, scanning the scene with quiet intensity. He carries a worn leather satchel slung across his chest, and his clothes, flannel shirt, sturdy boots, blend into the wilderness as if he's part of it. "Hey," he says, his voice low and steady. "Can you hear me?" Emily nods weakly, her throat too dry to speak. He kneels beside her, his movements calm but purposeful. He sees the bite immediately, his jaw tightening as he assesses the situation. "Rattlesnake," he mutters, more to himself than to her. "How long ago?"
15 minutes, Emily manages to whisper. Maybe 20.
He nods, already reaching into his satchel.
"You're gonna be okay," he says. And there's something in his voice, certainty, not false hope, that makes her believe him, even as her body screams otherwise. "My name's Jack. I'm gonna take care of you." Jack works quickly, his hands steady as he examines the bite. He doesn't waste words, but his presence is reassuring, like an anchor in a storm.
He pulls out a small vial of liquid.
And a bundle of dried herbs, crushing them into a paste with a stone. "This'll slow the venom," he says, spreading the mixture gently over the wound. "It's not a cure, but it buys us time." Emily watches him, her vision swimming. She wants to ask who he is, how he knows this, why he's out here in the middle of nowhere, but the words won't come. The pain is still there, sharp and relentless, but his calm is contagious.
She focuses on his hands, calloused, strong, moving with a precision that speaks of experience. "We need to get you to my cabin," Jack says, tying a clean cloth around her ankle. "It's not far, but you can't walk. I'm gonna carry you. You good with that?" Emily nods, too weak to argue. Jack slips an arm under her shoulders and another under her knees, lifting her effortlessly. She's surprised by his strength, by the way he moves through the forest with ease, navigating roots and rocks without breaking stride. Her head rests against his chest, and she can hear the steady rhythm of his heartbeat, a counterpoint to her own racing pulse. The journey feels like a blur. The trees sway above her, their branches weaving patterns against the sky. Jack's voice breaks through occasionally, soft and reassuring. "Almost there. Hang on." She clings to his words, to the warmth of his presence, as the venom clouds her mind. Finally, they reach the cabin, a small, weathered structure nestled in a clearing. It's simple, almost primitive, with log walls and a slanted roof covered in moss. Smoke curls from a stone chimney, and a stack of firewood leans against one wall. It's not much, but to Emily, it feels like salvation. Jack carries her inside, laying her gently on a cot covered with a wool blanket. The cabin smells of pine and earth, with shelves lined with jars of herbs, dried plants hanging from the rafters, and a small fire crackling in the hearth. It's a world apart from the sterile luxury of her old life. And yet, at this moment, it's everything she needs. Jack kneels beside her, his face etched with focus. He checks her pulse, then her eyes, his fingers brushing lightly against her wrist. "Your heart's racing," he says. "That's normal. The venom's spreading, but we're gonna fight it. You trust me?"
Emily nods, her voice barely a whisper. "Yes." He gives her a small, almost imperceptible smile, then turns to his work. He mixes another concoction, this one a bitter-smelling tea, and holds it to her lips. "Drink," he says. "It's gonna taste awful, but it'll help." She forces it down, wincing at the taste. Jack watches her closely, his eyes never leaving her face. "Good," he says. "Now rest. Your body's fighting hard. Let it."
Emily sinks back against the cot, her eyelids heavy. The pain is still there, a dull ache now, but the panic is fading, replaced by a strange, fragile hope. She looks at Jack, his silhouette outlined by the firelight, and wonders who he is. A hermit, a healer, a man running from something, just like her. As she drifts into a fitful sleep, one thought lingers. She's not alone anymore. The hours that follow are a battle. Emily's body fights the venom, her temperature spiking, her breath shallow and uneven. Jack stays by her side, tireless, his hands moving between cloths soaked in cool water and more herbal mixtures. He doesn't speak much, but his presence is constant, a quiet strength that holds the darkness at bay. Outside, the forest hums with life. The wind whispers through the trees, carrying the scent of rain. Inside the cabin, time slows, each moment measured by the rise and fall of Emily's chest. Jack watches her, his own thoughts a tangle of instinct and memory. He's done this before, not with a snakebite, but with other wounds, other lives on the edge. He's no doctor, but the wilderness has taught him things no medical school could. He knows the plants, the rhythms of the body, the delicate balance between life and death. He doesn't know Emily's story, doesn't need to. She's here, fighting, and that's enough. But as he presses a damp cloth to her forehead, he can't help but wonder. What brought her out here, alone, so far from the world? There's a fire in her, even now, a determination he recognizes. It's the same fire that keeps him here, year after year, away from the noise of civilization. Emily stirs, her eyes fluttering open. "Jack?" she murmurs, her voice hoarse. "I'm here," he says, leaning closer. "You're doing great. Just keep breathing." She manages a weak smile, her hand reaching for his. He hesitates, then takes it, his rough fingers curling gently around hers. It's a small gesture, but it feels like a lifeline, a connection forged in the crucible of survival. The fire crackles softly, casting shadows on the walls. Outside, the first drops of rain begin to fall, pattering against the roof. Emily's eyes close again, her breathing steadier now. Jack sits back, his own exhaustion creeping in, but he doesn't move. He'll stay until she's through the worst of it. He always does. The rain falls harder now, a steady drumbeat against the cabin's roof. Inside, the fire casts a warm glow, its light flickering across the log walls. The air smells of damp earth and burning pine, mingling with the faint, bitter scent of herbs. Emily lies on the cot, her chest rising and falling unevenly, her face pale and slick with sweat. Jack kneels beside her, his hands steady but his eyes betraying a flicker of worry. The venom is fighting back, and time is slipping away. On Emily's face, her closed eyes, her parted lips, the faint crease of pain on her brow. Her braid has come loose, strands of chestnut hair clinging to her damp skin. She looks fragile, almost ethereal, like a figure caught between worlds. But there's a fire in her still, a stubborn spark that refuses to go out. Jack sees it, feels it, and it drives him to keep going, even as exhaustion gnaws at his bones. Emily's condition worsens as the night deepens. The herbal remedies have slowed the venom's spread, but they're not enough. Her pulse is erratic, her breathing shallow, and her skin is clammy to the touch. Jack checks her ankle again, grimacing at the swelling. The bite marks are dark, angry, surrounded by a halo of bruised flesh. He knows the signs: shock, organ stress, the body's desperate struggle to survive. If he doesn't act fast, she won't make it. He moves to the shelves, his hands rifling through jars and bundles of dried plants. His mind races, piecing together years of knowledge gleaned from the wilderness. He's no stranger to danger. Broken bones, infections, frostbite. But this is different. This is a life in his hands, a stranger who stumbled into his world and now depends on him completely. The weight of it presses against his chest, but he pushes it aside. Focus. Act. Save her. He finds what he needs. A root, gnarled and dark, stored in a small tin. It's rare, potent, something he's only used once before. He grinds it into a powder, mixing it with water over the fire until it forms a thick, acrid paste. The smell is sharp, almost medicinal, filling the cabin with a strange, primal energy. He carries it to Emily, kneeling beside her again. "Emily," he says softly, his voice cutting through the haze of her pain. "I need you to stay with me. Can you do that?" Her eyes flutter open, glassy and unfocused. She tries to speak, but only a faint moan escapes. Jack's heart clenches, but he keeps his face calm, his voice steady. "This is gonna hurt," he says, "but it's gonna help. Trust me." He applies the paste to her ankle, working it into the wound with careful, deliberate strokes. Emily gasps, her body tensing as the mixture burns against her skin. Her hand grips the edge of the cot, knuckles white, and a low cry escapes her lips. Jack winces, hating the pain he's causing, but he doesn't stop. He knows this is her best chance. The paste is only the first step. The venom has spread too far, and her body is shutting down. Jack checks her pulse again. Too fast, too weak. He leans closer, his ear near her mouth, listening to her ragged breaths. Then he feels it. A hitch, a falter, the terrifying moment when her breathing stops. "No," he says, the word a guttural command. He moves without thinking, his hands finding her chest, pressing down in a steady rhythm. CPR. He's done it before, years ago, in a life he left behind. His movements are automatic, muscle memory taking over. 1, 2, 3. Compressions, firm and controlled. He tilts her head back, pinches her nose, and breathes into her mouth, willing her lungs to respond. "Come on, Emily," he mutters between breaths. "You're stronger than this. Come back." The cabin is silent except for the crackle of the fire and the rhythmic thud of his hands against her chest. The rain outside is a distant roar, the forest holding its breath. Jack's world narrows to this moment, this woman, this fight. He doesn't know her, doesn't know why she's here or what she's running from, but none of that matters. She's here, and she's his responsibility. Seconds stretch into eternity. His arms ache, his own breath ragged, but he doesn't stop. He can't. And then, a gasp, faint, but unmistakable. Emily's chest heaves, her body jerking as air floods her lungs. Her eyes fly open, wide and panicked, and she coughs, clutching at the blanket. Jack exhales, relief crashing over him like a wave. "That's it," he says, his voice hoarse. "You're okay. You're okay." Emily's gaze finds his, her eyes still clouded with pain but alive. So alive. She tries to speak, but Jack shakes his head. "Don't talk," he says gently. "Just breathe. I've got you." He sits back, his hands trembling now that the adrenaline is fading. Emily's breathing steadies, her chest rising and falling with a rhythm that feels like a miracle. The danger isn't over. She's still weak, still fighting the venom, but she's crossed the line from death back to life. And Jack, for the first time in years, feels something stir inside him. Purpose. The next few days are a blur of recovery. Emily sleeps for hours at a time, her body exhausted from the ordeal. Jack tends to her with a quiet diligence, changing the dressings on her ankle, brewing teas to flush the venom from her system, and keeping the fire stoked to warm the cabin. He moves like a man who's done this all his life, though he's never had a patient quite like her. The cabin becomes a sanctuary, a world unto itself. The rain stops, and sunlight filters through the trees, painting the clearing in shades of gold and green. Birds sing outside, their calls drifting through the open window. Emily wakes in fits and starts, her strength returning slowly. Each time she opens her eyes, Jack is there, sometimes tending the fire, sometimes crushing herbs, sometimes just sitting by the window, staring out at the forest. She watches him when she thinks he's not looking. There's a stillness to him, a quiet strength that feels both foreign and familiar. His hands are rough, scarred from years of work, but they move with a gentleness that surprises her. His face, framed by that short beard, is hard to read, but his eyes, deep, hazel, flecked with gold, carry a story she can't quite decipher. Who is he? Why does he live out here, so far from everything? She wants to ask, but the words feel too heavy, too soon. One morning she wakes to find him sitting by her cot, a bowl of broth in his hands. The smell is earthy, warm, and her stomach growls despite herself. Jack notices and gives her a small smile, the first real one she's seen. "Hungry?" he asks. She nods, sitting up slowly. Her ankle throbs, but the pain is duller now, manageable. Jack hands her the bowl, and she takes a sip, savoring the warmth. It's simple, vegetables, herbs, maybe some wild game, but it's the best thing she's ever tasted. "Thank you," she says, her voice still weak but clear. "For everything." Jack shrugs, looking away. "Just doing what needed to be done." She studies him, sensing the weight behind his words. "You saved my life," she says quietly. "That's not nothing." He meets her gaze, and for a moment something passes between them. An understanding, unspoken but real. Then he stands, busying himself with the fire. "Eat," he says. "You need your strength." Emily eats in silence, the broth warming her from the inside out. The cabin feels different now. Not just a shelter, but a place where she's starting to feel safe. She looks around, taking in the details she missed before. A bookshelf filled with worn paperbacks, a hand-carved wooden chair, a small sketchbook on the table, its pages filled with drawings of plants and animals. It's a life, she realizes, carefully built, deliberately chosen. As the days pass, Emily grows stronger. She can sit up for longer, even take a few steps with Jack's help. Her ankle is still swollen, but the bruising is fading, and the dizziness is gone. She's grateful, but there's something else growing inside her, something she can't name. It's in the way Jack checks on her, the way he listens when she talks, the way he seems to understand her without needing to ask. They start to talk more, tentative at first, then with a quiet ease. Emily tells him about the city, about the endless noise, the pressure to be someone she's not. She doesn't mention her family or the life she's running from, not yet, but Jack doesn't push. He listens, his eyes steady, his presence a kind of anchor. In return, he shares pieces of himself, though he's guarded, choosing his words carefully. He tells her about the forest, about the plants he uses, the animals he tracks, the rhythms of the seasons. He doesn't talk about his past, but Emily senses it's there, a shadow he carries. She doesn't pry, but she's curious, drawn to the mystery of him. One evening, as the sun sets and the cabin glows with candlelight, they sit by the fire, sharing a meal of roasted roots and dried fish. Emily feels a warmth that has nothing to do with the flames. She looks at Jack, his face softened by the light, and feels a pull, a connection she can't ignore.
"Why do you stay out here?"
She asks, her voice soft. "All alone?" Jack stares into the fire, his expression unreadable. For a long moment he doesn't answer, and Emily wonders if she's crossed a line. Then he speaks, his voice low, almost a whisper. "It's quiet," he says. "The world out there. It's loud. Too loud. Out here I can hear myself think." Emily nods, understanding more than she expected. She thinks of her own escape, her own need for silence. "I get that," she says.
"I came out here to, I don't know, find something. Myself, maybe." Jack looks at her, his eyes searching. "Did you?" She smiles, a small wistful thing. "I'm starting to." The moment hangs between them, fragile and electric. Neither of them moves, but the air feels charged, like the forest before a storm. Emily's heart beats faster, and she wonders if he feels it too, the beginning of something, unspoken but undeniable. Outside, the forest hums with life. The stars emerge, bright against the velvet sky. Inside the cabin, Emily and Jack sit in silence, the fire crackling softly. They're strangers, yet not. They're survivors, tethered by a moment that changed them both. Emily doesn't know what comes next, but for the first time in a long time, she's not afraid. The forest wakes slowly, bathed in the soft gray light of dawn. Mist curls through the trees, draping the clearing around Jack's cabin in a delicate veil. The air is cool, carrying the scent of pine and damp earth. Inside, the cabin is quiet, the fire reduced to glowing embers. Emily sits on the edge of the cot, her legs dangling, her hands resting lightly on the wool blanket. Her ankle is still bandaged, but the swelling has gone down, and the pain is a distant memory. She feels alive, whole, in a way she hasn't in years. Jack stands by the window, his silhouette framed against the morning light. He's brewing tea, the familiar ritual of crushing herbs and heating water filling the space with a comforting rhythm. Emily watches him, her gaze tracing the lines of his shoulders, the way his hands move with quiet precision. There's a warmth in her chest, a feeling she's afraid to name but can't ignore. It's been there since the night by the fire, growing with every shared glance, every moment of silence that feels like a conversation. The cabin's interior, the rough-hewn walls, the shelves of jars, the sketchbook open on the table, its pages filled with Jack's careful drawings. It's a small world, but it's theirs. A sanctuary carved out of the wilderness. For Emily, it's become more than a place to heal. It's a place to begin again. Emily's recovery is steady now, each day bringing new strength. She can walk short distances, leaning on Jack at first, then on a makeshift crutch he carved from a branch. The forest, once a place of danger, feels like home. She learns its rhythms, the way the light shifts through the trees, the calls of birds at dusk, the way the air changes before a storm. Jack teaches her small things, how to identify edible berries, how to read animal tracks, how to listen to the wind. She soaks it in, hungry for the knowledge, for the sense of belonging it gives her. They fall into a quiet routine. Mornings are for chores, gathering firewood, tending the small garden behind the cabin, checking traps for fish or small game. Afternoons are for rest, with Emily reading from Jack's bookshelf or sketching in his sketchbook when he's not looking. Evenings are for stories, shared over meals by the fire. They talk about everything and nothing, books they've read, places they've seen, dreams they've tucked away. The conversations are slow, deliberate, like the forest itself, and they leave Emily feeling seen in a way she never has before. Jack is still guarded, his past a shadow he keeps at bay, but he opens up in fragments. He tells her about the stars, pointing out constellations through the cabin's window. He talks about the plants he uses,
their names and properties rolling off his tongue like poetry. Once, he mentions a dog he had years ago, a stray he found injured in the woods and nursed back to health. The story is brief, but the tenderness in his voice lingers, and Emily feels a pang of curiosity, of longing to know more. She shares her own stories, carefully at first, then with a vulnerability that surprises her. She tells him about the city, its relentless pace, its glittering facades hiding empty promises. She talks about her childhood, about summers spent at her grandmother's cabin, where she first fell in love with the outdoors. She doesn't mention her family's wealth or the life she's running from, but Jack doesn't press. He listens, his eyes steady, his presence a quiet invitation to be herself. One afternoon, they sit by the stream behind the cabin, the water glinting in the sunlight. Emily dips her toes in, wincing at the cold but smiling at the sensation. Jack sits beside her, sharpening a knife with a whetstone, the rhythmic scrape blending with the stream's gurgle. The air is warm, alive with the buzz of insects and the scent of wildflowers. "Why did you come out here?" Jack asks, his voice soft but direct. "Really?" Emily hesitates, her fingers tracing patterns in the dirt. She's avoided this question, even in her own mind, but something about Jack's gaze, open, unguarded, makes her want to answer. "I was suffocating," she says finally. "Back home, everything was planned for me. My job, my future, even who I was supposed to love. I couldn't breathe, so I left." Jack nods, his hands stilling on the knife. "Takes guts to walk away," he says. "Most people don't." She looks at him, searching his face. "Did you?" He doesn't answer right away, his eyes fixed on the stream. For a moment, she thinks he won't respond, but then he speaks, his voice low. "Yeah," he says. "A long time ago." The words hang between them, heavy with unspoken stories. Emily wants to ask more, but she senses the boundary, the line he's not ready to cross. Instead, she reaches out, her hand brushing his. It's a small gesture, but it feels bold, electric. Jack looks at her, his eyes softening, and for a moment, the world narrows to just the two of them. The stream, the sunlight, the quiet pulse of something new. Their connection deepens in the days that follow, unspoken but undeniable. It's in the way Jack steadies her when she stumbles, his hand lingering a moment longer than necessary. It's in the way Emily catches him watching her, his gaze warm and searching. It's in the silences, comfortable and full, that say more than words ever could. One evening they sit on the cabin's porch, wrapped in blankets as the forest settles into twilight. The sky is a canvas of purples and golds, the stars just beginning to emerge. Emily leans against the wall, her shoulder brushing Jack's. She feels a peace she can't explain, a sense of being exactly where she's meant to be. "Jack," she says, her voice barely above a whisper. "What happens when I'm better? When I have to leave?" He doesn't answer right away, his eyes fixed on the horizon. Then he turns to her, his expression soft but serious. "You don't have to do anything," he says. "You get to choose." The words hit her like a revelation. Choose. It's a word she's rarely associated with her life, a concept that feels both foreign and exhilarating. She looks at Jack, at the man who's given her not just her life, but a glimpse of something more, and feels a surge of gratitude, of something deeper she's not ready to name. Before she can respond, a sound cuts through the stillness. A low, distant hum, growing louder by the second. Jack's head snaps up, his body tensing. Emily follows his gaze, her heart sinking as she recognizes the noise. A helicopter. Its silhouette appears against the darkening sky, its blades slicing through the air, its lights piercing the forest like a predator's eyes. The helicopter circles the clearing, its roar shattering the cabin's tranquility. Jack stands, his jaw tight, his hands clenched at his sides. Emily feels a chill, a premonition of the world she thought she'd left behind. She knows what this means, even before the helicopter lands, kicking up dust and leaves in a chaotic swirl. Two men climb out, dressed in dark suits, their faces grim. They move with purpose, scanning the clearing until their eyes land on Emily. She stands, her legs unsteady, her heart pounding. Jack steps in front of her, protective, but Emily touches his arm, shaking her head. "It's okay," she says, though her voice trembles. "Miss Everett," one of the men says, his tone formal but urgent. "Your family's been looking for you. We need you to come with us." Everett. The name hangs in the air, a key to a truth Emily has kept hidden. Jack glances at her, his eyes narrowing, but he doesn't speak. Emily feels the weight of his gaze, the unspoken question. Who are you? She takes a deep breath, steeling herself. I'm not going anywhere until I know what this is about, she says, her voice steadier now. The man hesitates, then steps closer. Your father's sick, he says. He's asking for you. It's serious. The words hit Emily like a physical blow. Her father, the man she's spent years running from, the architect of the life she rejected. She feels a rush of emotions, guilt, anger, fear, but above all, a sense of inevitability. The world she escaped is pulling her back, and she's not ready. She turns to Jack, her eyes pleading. I need to tell you something, she says, before I go. The men wait, impatient, but Emily ignores them. She takes Jack's hand, leading him back to the porch, away from prying eyes. The helicopter's hum is a constant drone, but she blocks it out, focusing on Jack, on the man who's become her anchor. My name is Emily Everett, she says, her voice low but clear. My father is William Everett, the CEO of Everett Industries. I'm his only heir. Jack's face is unreadable, but his eyes flicker with something. Surprise, maybe, or understanding. Emily presses on, the words spilling out like a confession. I ran away because I couldn't live the life he wanted for me. The company, the marriage he arranged, the expectations. It was killing me. I came out here to find something real, something mine. And then I found you. She pauses, her throat tight. I didn't tell you because I didn't want it to matter. Out here, I'm just Emily. Not an heiress, not a pawn, just me. Jack is silent for a long moment, his gaze steady. Then he speaks, his voice quiet but firm. You're still you, he says. Doesn't matter what your name is or where you come from. You're the woman who fought to live, who's learning to listen to the forest. That's real. Emily's eyes sting with tears, but she blinks them back. I don't know what to do, she admits. If I go back, I'm afraid I'll lose this. Lose me. Jack takes her hands, his touch grounding her. You won't lose yourself, he says. Not if you choose. Go back, Emily. Not because you have to, but because you want to face it. Whatever you decide after that, it's yours. His words echo the ones from earlier, the ones that shifted something inside her. Choose. She looks at him, at the man who's given her more than her life, and feels a surge of courage. She nods, squeezing his hands. I'll come back, she says, a promise to him and to herself. Jack smiles, a rare, genuine smile that lights up his face. I'll be here, he says. The helicopter ride is a blur. Emily sits in the back, the city looming closer with every mile. The men in suits brief her father's heart condition, the company in chaos, the media frenzy over her disappearance. But she barely listens. Her mind is still in the forest, with Jack, with the life she's only just begun to build. As the city skyline appears, glittering and cold, Emily feels a pang of dread. But beneath it, there's something else. Resolve. She's not the same woman who left. She's survived a snake bite, a brush with death, and found something worth fighting for. Whatever comes next, she'll face it on her terms. The city sprawls beneath the helicopter, a glittering maze of glass and steel that feels both familiar and alien. Emily presses her forehead against the window, her breath fogging the glass. The skyline is sharp, relentless, a stark contrast to the soft greens and golds of the forest she left behind. Her heart aches for the cabin, for Jack's quiet presence, for the life she glimpsed in the wilderness. But there's no turning back now. The world she ran from is here, waiting, and she knows she must face it, not as the heiress she was born to be, but as the woman she's become. Across the city, its lights pulsing like a heartbeat. Skyscrapers tower over crowded streets, their reflections shimmering in the glass. The sound of the helicopter fades, replaced by the hum of traffic, the distant wail of sirens, the rhythm of a world that never sleeps. Emily's face is resolute, her eyes carrying a fire forged in the forest. This is her moment, her chance to choose. The helicopter lands on the roof of Everett Industries headquarters, a sleek monolith that dominates the city's skyline. Emily steps out, her hiking boots incongruous against the polished concrete. The men in suits flank her, their faces unreadable, but she barely notices them. Her mind is racing, piecing together what comes next. She's here for her father, but she's also here for herself, to confront the life she left and decide what to do with the one she's found. They lead her to an elevator, its mirrored walls reflecting her tired but determined face. She's still in her trekking clothes, her hair loose and wild, a far cry from the polished heiress the world expects. The elevator descends, and with each floor, Emily feels the weight of her old life pressing closer. She thinks of Jack's words, "You get to choose," and holds them like a talisman. The doors open to a private hospital suite, all white walls and sterile light. Her father, William Everett, lies in a bed surrounded by monitors, his face gaunt, his eyes sunken. He's a shadow of the imposing man she remembers, the one who built an empire and expected her to inherit it. Beside him stands her mother, elegant and composed, though her eyes betray a flicker of worry. A man in a suit, Emily recognizes him as her father's lawyer, hovers nearby, clutching a briefcase. "Emily," her mother says, her voice a mix of relief and reproach. "Where have you been?" Emily doesn't answer right away. She steps closer to the bed, her gaze fixed on her father. He looks at her, his eyes cloudy but sharp, and for a moment they're just a father and daughter, not an empire and its heir. "You're here," he says, his voice weak but warm. "I didn't think you'd come." "I almost didn't," Emily admits, her voice steady. "But I needed to see you." The room is silent, the weight of years unspoken hanging between them. Her mother starts to speak, but Emily raises a hand, silencing her. "Let me say this," she says, her tone firm but not unkind. "I left because I couldn't be what you wanted. The company, the marriage, the life you planned, it wasn't mine. I needed to find my own way." Her father's eyes soften, a rare vulnerability breaking through. "I only wanted what was best for you," he says. "The company, it's your legacy." Emily shakes her head, a small, sad smile on her lips. "It's your legacy, Dad, not mine." The lawyer steps forward, clearing his throat. "Miss Everett, with your father's condition, the board needs clarity on succession. You're the sole heir. If you don't take control, the company could—" "No," Emily interrupts, her voice cutting through the room like a blade. "I'm not taking it." Her mother gasps, her hand flying to her chest. "Emily, you can't just walk away from this. It's your responsibility." "It's my choice," Emily says, her eyes blazing. "And I choose to live a life that's mine. Not yours, not the board's, not the world's. Mine." The room falls silent again, the weight of her words settling like dust. Her father watches her, and for the first time, Emily sees something like pride in his eyes. "You've changed," he says quietly. "You're stronger." Emily nods, her throat tight. "I had to be." The next few days are a whirlwind. Emily meets with the board, her father's advisors, and a swarm of reporters hungry for the story of the missing heiress. She navigates it all with a clarity she didn't know she possessed, her time in the forest anchoring her. She refuses the CEO role, proposing instead that the company be restructured under a trusted executive with a focus on sustainability and ethical practices. It's a bold move, one that sparks debate, but Emily holds firm. She's not here to play by their rules. Her most significant decision comes during a meeting with her father's lawyers. They present her with the terms of her inheritance, a fortune that could buy her anything, anywhere. Emily listens, her face calm, but her mind is elsewhere, in a forest clearing with a man who taught her what freedom feels like. When they finish, she speaks, her voice steady. "I don't want the money for myself," she says. "I want to use it to create something new. A foundation, focused on protecting wilderness areas and teaching people to connect with nature. I want to call it the Wild Haven Institute." The lawyers exchange glances, clearly unprepared for this. One of them, a woman with sharp eyes, leans forward. "Miss Everett, that's a significant undertaking. Are you sure?" Emily smiles, thinking of Jack, of the cabin, of the life she's choosing. "I've never been more sure." The announcement comes at a press conference, held in the atrium of Everett Industries. Emily stands at a podium, her trekking clothes replaced by a simple green dress that echoes the forest. The room is packed, journalists, executives, curious onlookers, all waiting to hear what the runaway heiress will say. Cameras flash, but Emily doesn't flinch. She feels Jack's presence, not in the room but in her heart, guiding her. She steps to the microphone, her voice clear and strong. "For too long I lived a life that wasn't mine. she begins. I was told who to be, what to want, how to live. But I learned something out there, in the wilderness. We all have a choice. We can choose to live for ourselves, to build something that matters, to love without conditions. The room is silent, hanging on her words. Emily takes a breath, her eyes shining. I'm stepping away from Everett Industries, not because I don't care, but because I care too much. About the world we're leaving behind, about the places that heal us, about the people we become when we're free. That's why I'm founding the Wild Haven Institute, a place where anyone can learn to survive, to heal, to find themselves in nature. This is my legacy, and I choose it. The applause starts slowly, then builds to a roar. Emily steps back, her heart pounding, her smile radiant. She's done it. She's chosen. Weeks later, Emily stands at the edge of the forest, the familiar trail stretching before her. The city is behind her, its noise and demands fading with every step. She's lighter now, unburdened, her backpack carrying only what she needs. The air is crisp, the trees ablaze with autumn colors, reds, oranges, golds. She breathes deeply, feeling the forest welcome her home. The cabin comes into view, its chimney silent, its windows dark. Emily's heart clenches, a flicker of fear creeping in. What if Jack's gone? What if the life she dreamed of is out of reach? She quickens her pace, her boots crunching against the leaves until she reaches the clearing. The door is ajar, and she steps inside, her eyes adjusting to the dim light. The cabin is the same. Shelves of jars, the smell of pine, the sketchbook on the table, but it feels empty, too quiet. Then she sees it, a note, pinned to the wall, in Jack's careful handwriting. Emily, it reads. Had to check the traps, back by dusk. If you're reading this, you made it. Welcome home. Relief floods her, followed by a laugh, bright and free. She drops her pack, sinking onto the cot, and lets the moment wash over her. She's home. Dusk falls, painting the sky in hues of violet and gold. Emily hears footsteps, steady and familiar, and her heart leaps. She steps outside, and there he is, Jack, his satchel slung across his chest, his eyes lighting up when he sees her. He stops, as if unsure, but Emily doesn't hesitate. She runs to him, throwing her arms around him, and he catches her, his embrace warm and solid. You came back, he says, his voice rough with emotion. I told you I would, she replies, pulling back to look at him. His face is the same, weathered, kind, with those hazel eyes she's dreamed of. But there's something new, a vulnerability that mirrors her own. They sit on the porch, wrapped in blankets as the stars emerge. Emily tells him everything. Her father, the company, the institute. Jack listens, his hand resting lightly on hers, his smile growing with every word. When she finishes, he's quiet for a moment, then speaks, his voice soft but certain. You're building something real, he says. Something good. I'm proud of you. Emily's eyes sting, but she smiles. I want you to be part of it, she says. The Wild Haven Institute. It's not just mine, it's ours if you want it. If you... Jack looks at her, his gaze searching. You sure? He asks. I'm just a guy in a cabin. I don't know much about institutes or foundations. You know the forest? Emily says. You know how to survive, how to heal. That's what this is about. Teaching people to find what we found. Freedom, peace, themselves. He's silent for a moment, then nods, a slow, deliberate gesture. Okay, he says. I'm in. They seal it with a kiss, soft and tentative at first, then deepening with the weight of everything they've shared. The forest watches, its whispers blending with the night, a silent blessing on their new beginning. The story of Emily and Jack offers profound lessons on personal growth, trust, and finding true purpose in life. One key message is that sometimes we need to step out of our familiar lives and face challenges head-on, just as Emily did when confronted with death in the wilderness. This experience helped her realize that life is not just about fame and fortune, but about connecting authentically with oneself and others. Another important lesson is about resilience and trust, as Jack demonstrated by not only saving Emily's life, but also teaching her the values of nature and simple living. Together, they found not just love, but a true sense of purpose. The story encourages us to embrace change and not fear leaving behind what no longer serves us in order to discover a more meaningful and peaceful path. By living authentically, we can find where we truly belong. Years pass, and the Wild Haven Institute takes shape. The cabin becomes its heart, expanded into a network of trails, classrooms, and cabins where people come to learn survival, mindfulness, and the art of living simply. Emily and Jack lead it together, their love a quiet, steady force that inspires everyone who visits. They teach classes on foraging, tracking, and healing. But more than that, they teach people to listen, to the forest, to themselves, to the possibilities of a life chosen freely. The camera pans across the institute on an autumn day, the trees ablaze with color, the air alive with laughter and learning. Students, young and old, from cities and small towns, move through the trails, their faces lit with wonder. Emily stands at the edge of a clearing, her hair streaked with gray, her eyes as bright as ever. Jack is beside her, his hand in hers, his smile a mirror of hers. The screen fades to a final image, the forest at dawn, mist curling through the trees, a new day beginning. A voiceover, Emily's, warm and reflective, closes the story. Sometimes the most unexpected journeys lead us to where we belong, she says. I came to the wilderness to escape, but I found so much more, a home, a purpose, a love that's real. The Wild Haven Institute is our way of sharing that with the world, because out here in the quiet, we all have a chance to choose who we are. The music swells, a soft, hopeful melody. As the screen fades to black, text appears, simple and elegant. Wild Haven Institute, find your path, choose your life.